Good evening, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pundit. My name is Scott Morganroth, the Motor City Madmouth. Great show lined up. Before I introduce the regulars on the show, I want to let everybody know that Pundit's Pundit being broadcast around the world. The audio version of Pundit's Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, and Denzel loves Spotify, right? Okay, give it a big round
for road trips.
Google or wherever you get your podcast. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube South Florida Tribune. We're looking for more subscribers to grow the brand. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest? No problem. Participate in chat room. That's one way to do it. Or send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com. If you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. Kenny Ebling is behind the scenes. And yes, folks, it is out. Okay, my book, Lessons from the Microphone, Tuning into the Enduring Wisdom of Visionary Leaders. You can find this book on Amazon and Kindle. So there you go. You want to learn a lot about our industry? This is the way to do it. I've got 40 years worth of packed stories, and I got news here. There are a lot of other ones I could have put in there, but I'm going to save that for a second part. I got to leave a little something out there for everybody, right? But the first one will make a good Christmas holiday gift, or it's great for budding journalists or just anybody that wants to go out there and learn a little bit about our industry. So with that said, let me go ahead and introduce the crew. George Eichhorn, he'll be working too tonight.
I am here. Thanks for having me on. Good evening.
You're very welcome. Yeah, George Eichhorn will be working on Fire Up Wisconsin, which follows Pundit's Pundit afterwards. Denzel Snipes is back.
Yes, I'm here. And never forget about that one time that Lawrence Taylor headlined a WrestleMania, and he didn't do half bad.
And that's true, and that will be on Monday.
And speaking here, before I introduce him, is the pundit himself, Jacob Krister. Welcome back to your
What's going on, Dens? And by the way, you love Spotify so much, I can see you being the poster boy for it, being on ads and everything.
Yeah, I wish I had the hat and the T-shirt. And maybe I should go get a custom jersey made.
Yeah, you know, when Spotify got approved, I'll tell you, Denzel, you talk about a kid out of a candy store. This guy was gleaming. Oh my goodness. He was gleaming. That's what we like about what we're trying to do, though. Is like to get it out to everybody, not only visual, but audio. That way, if you're ever in the subway, on public transportation, bike, whatever, you can hear us a lot of different ways. Obviously, we certainly enjoy when people look at us through YouTube, but not everybody can see us, so at least you can hear us. So one programming note I want to mention, next Wednesday night will be Pundit's Pundit. It will be before the Sports Exchange, which will follow at around 9 or 9:15 Eastern time. There's no way we're broadcasting on Thanksgiving. And we wouldn't, and as much as we'd love to see you on Thanksgiving, I know that your families are very important, and we certainly appreciate that. So a programming note for next week. Okay, we're going to have Inside the Pigskin next Tuesday night and a double header of shows, beginning with Pundit's Pundit at 8, and then at 9 o'clock will be the Sports Exchange. And then we're going to tell you, have a great Thanksgiving weekend, but we'll get to business right now. All the introductions are out of the way. And now the only one left to introduce is Denzel Snipes. He's going to take it from there. Go ahead, Denzel.
All right. And before we get started, just want to remind everybody, of course, hit that like and subscribe button. Follow the South Florida Tribune. There's a lot of great shows, a lot of great shows and news on a daily. And also like and subscribe and follow Sideline Sports Network on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, X, whatever you want to call it. We've got a ton of great shows, ton of great material coming in, day out. The new TV deal does start in a few weeks, so more to come on that one. So with that being said, we'll go ahead and roll into our first topic of the evening, and that is a small debate, and that is, can journalism go back to respectability? Man, there's a few different ways we can attack this one. Of course, you have some old schoolers out there like our good Uncle Scott and George, who come from the era where, it was point blank. You went out there, you were fair, you were impartial, you were accurate, and I recall being in college, and my professor said, you know what? Sadly, it's no longer like that. It's not about being right. It's about being first. even if it's inaccurate in the age of social media, and who could be the first to tweet it out, or they may tweet something out. All right, more to come on this one. It could be accurate, inaccurate. It's anyone's guess. I mean, shoot, you've even had incidents where you had journalists resort to outright lying. I'm pretty sure everyone remembers here the case of Brian Williams from NBC. And during the 2003 Iraq invasion, he claimed that his helicopter was hit by an RPG. Come to find out, it wasn't that chopper. It was the one in front of them. And he got into a whole scandal about it, and he was ripped to shreds for it. He was forced to come on and apologize. So, like, throughout time, I mean, you've got social media influencing. You've had journalists, flat out lying about what happened to him and everything. And then there was also one case of Geraldo Rivera back in the same 2003 Iraq invasion, where he literally was on worldwide television telling the world where American troops were going to go. I said at the time period, man, it's easy to be a terrorist. All you got to do is just have the internet, and you can find out where all the troops are going, and that way you can not be there whenever they get there. It compromises, it compromises American forces and everything. And all in the name of what? All in the name of what? You want to be the best, but you're breaking ethics when you do so. You also may be endangering lives, You might go, and here's the thing, you won't even get like an award for anything because people will just call you out. They'll call you out, they'll blast you the same way they tore Brian Williams to shreds behind that, and he took a huge hit on his reputation. The magic question is, can it go back to respectability? Yes, it can, but it's gonna, in my opinion, it's gonna take the populace to do so. I think it's gonna take more people holding journalists accountable versus having a confirmation bias. And let me explain before I pass it on. So the definition of confirmation bias is basically whenever you form an opinion about somebody and then you go and you seek information that confirms your thoughts about them. Example, I think that Jacob is a thief. He just looks like one, like he steals bubble gum or something. Maybe he
might be right.
Bags, So then I go to, his local police department out there in Alpharetta, and I go search the database and see if he's ever been locked up for any theft-related offenses, grand larceny, shoplifting, anything like that, I think if people will get out of the notion of, I'm going to form an opinion about that guy, and then I'm going to go seek out news that confirms what I think about them, whether there's the truth or not. If people would just get back to the mindset of, all right, fair and impartial, what's right is right, what's wrong is wrong, what's fair is fair, then yes, it can go back to respectability, but I think it's going to take the people calling out the ones behind the microphone. On that, with that being said, I'm going to pass it on to you, Jake, and your thoughts about this.
We had this years and years ago, but like William Randolph Hearst, the king, what they call it, the king of yellow journalism, had this. Completely. And there's the rumor that Citizen Kane was about him. There's that rumor. There's all that kind of right there. But at the same time, you had so many other journalists that did care. See that it was almost. It was almost. But you want to know what you get now? You're getting these situations. You're getting these situations where you had the time. Before the 60 Minutes times and all that stuff. Before you had a loss leader. You had a loss leader with, it's like the news was a loss leader for the network.
Right.
You had that, so you had time to go look at a story, to go find. You had Frankreynolds go and get it right. Remember, it's like you had that.
Yeah.
You had those. But the thing is, now everybody's looking for number one in news, which should not be. It should not be. And could it go back to respectability? I do believe it can, but it's got to take, hypothetically, I'll just say this, Denz, one of us. Doesn't care about being last for years. One of us that doesn't care. One of us that's going to get the thing right, because eventually they're all going to you or me. They're all going to. But it's like there's not enough people that have that thing. They're too afraid. They want to get number one and number one now.
Yeah.
They want to get the fastest, and they want to get the top network, especially all these years. There's got to be the one that does not care.
Yeah.
Because eventually, it might take 10 years, but eventually that one's going to be the most trusted. They used to say that with Fox News, the most trusted news, and whatever. You know, I mean, it's like, I mean, we already know what the whole thing is. Everybody says we're the most trusted. We're this. We're number one. It's going to that number will be legitimate with the guy or girl that waits 10 years.
Yeah.
That just does it right constantly. Because guess what? Everyone lives off emotion. The people that watch live off emotion. So then they get screwed around enough, they'll forget that they called you, oh, you're a horrible, you're boring. They'll forget that. They'll go straight to you, especially with a 9/11 type story. Who was number one during 9/11? Pretty much Howard Stern.
Howard Stern.
Yeah, pretty much Howard Stern. Who was number one during that thing? But people looked at him as kind of the shock jock, pervert, all that stuff. He was number one. And that was in the middle. And guess what? They quit about that day. People get emotional. And they'll say that all they want to, but then they'll forget about it when it comes to something important.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know what? That actually is one of the that's one of the keys is tugging at heartstrings. You know, it's kind of one of the fastest ways to hook people to whatever story you're putting out there. You know, be it real or unfortunately false. Is and even in something with ill intent, there's a small bit of like truth in it. So there's some people who can say like, oh, well, this did happen, you know, but it's going to take another side saying, yeah, that did happen, but a whole lot of this didn't happen. Okay. But I want to swing it on to the OGs here. Go on to Scott and see what's going on. You know, you spent 40 plus years in this exact field. Do you think it can go back to respectability?
I want to believe that it will, as long as college professors do their jobs, as long as these wannabe journalists understand that, to me, it's not getting it first, it's getting it right. And I knew Jacob was going to mention Frankreynolds. I mean, he is in my book. And that's the one thing about Frankreynolds is this guy didn't care. You know, he wanted it right. And factual error to me is the same equivalent to a obscenity is what it is in our industry, if you get what I'm saying. So I want to believe that it will, but again, you have so many people doing it and there's so little regulation, whether it's through podcasting, internet radio. The FCC made sure you had to get it right, George, as we both know, or you were going to really get your head handed to you. So I want to believe it. I'm not sure. Now, I will tell you a football coach that I work with at the University of Miami named Mariocristobal. And one thing I like about Mario is he's the most straightforward individual you will ever meet. Really pretty good guy. And one thing he's always told us here at his press conferences is, you know what? Sorry, I'm not going to give you the answers. I'm going to give you a lot of clicks, but I'm going to tell you exactly what I feel. And he does. You know, and everybody's so worried about clicks in this business, and they tend to lose sight of the fundamentals. So I want to say cautiously optimistic, but the question is you have a pond with millions and millions of people that unfortunately force us to bring this up as a topic about what, I mean, we're right now, what you're really looking at is you're asking us respectability. Respectability. Is that what you consider the academic version of a C in class? I mean, when you think about it, right? What is respectability? I don't know what the definition dictionary. I don't even care. I know what I want it to believe. But we're settling for satisfactory journalism is what we're doing. But, you know, social media makes it hard. It doesn't make it easier that if you're at a TV station or any other, they're going to edit and take 90 seconds off of what they think. So they're going to slice it a little bit. And all of a sudden, once you slice the tape, everybody's going to draw their own conclusion, regardless of where this stuff comes from. So I'll say hopefully yes, but I need to see a lot more. I really do. Too many people are worried about clicks. They're not worried about getting it right. Factual errors.
Yeah. You know, it's the thing that you have to ask yourself. Do you want to tell the truth and have, you know, 20 likes, follows? Or do you want to tell a lie and have 20 million likes and follows?
I'm going to the chat room real quickly. All right. Jeremy Ballrick, TV journalism died when Tombrokow retired. Well, okay, that's a pretty good opinion. Good evening, Jeremy, and of course,
Good evening.
Fire Wisconsin later.
Hey, one thing I want to say with this is like it also died with one big thing too. Dan Rather, Dan Rather getting caught. It died there too, and really, I don't think we would have lost Brokaw if he didn't get sick.
Yeah.
So he would have kept his thing. We didn't lose Cronkite until he's gone. You got to remember, he did partial stuff. He did like journalism reports until his 90s.
Yeah.
So, and he was just healthy, and then he passed. So it's like we wouldn't have lost Brokaw until that thing. But I think it really, really died. I think it really, really had a problem with that situation with Dan Rather. And the whole thing, because that's when you're trying to get everybody and trying to get the emotion stirred up.
Yeah, absolutely. And then lastly, I want to go to George Eichhorn here and get your thoughts. And do you think that journalism can go back to being respectable?
That's a loaded question. Let me tell you guys, that is very, very difficult for me to imagine. And I'll give you a couple instances why. Scott, you nailed it, man. You nailed it, my friend. Journalism taught by college professors who are not liberal or ultra conservative or whatever, that the kids that are going into the field of journalism have to be taught on a level playing field, an honest playing field, let's call it. And I think what's happening now is we're leaning in one direction or the other, and we're all trying to fall into some sort of, political slant. And I know we don't want to talk politics, but we know what's going on in this country when everybody, this station you work for, then you got to lean that way. Oh, but if you want to work for that station over there, you lean that way. I mean, come on. This stuff is nonsense. This stuff has to stop. Put yourself in that airplane. Let me tell you this about 9/11. Put yourself in that airplane. What if those, I call them hostages, they really weren't, but they were on the plane seated, innocent people, let's call them. And they were communicating back and forth. They were hearing messages about something happened in New York and the Pentagon or whatever. What if that information they were getting was false? What if that information that the networks were feeding their loved ones who were watching it, and it wasn't the right message or it wasn't correct? I mean, you talk about endangering lives, because we all know what happened, and it ended up on the ground and exploding in Shanksville, Pennsylvania, because those people rose up after they heard from their loved ones and friends about what had already happened in New York and DC. And the importance of being correct in journalism, to me, can be no further illustrated than that set of circumstances there. But I agree with you guys. I mean, I'm hoping that it does get back to respectability. And with that comes the responsibility. If I'm having a press conference, or if I'm a head coach, or I'm the White House press secretary, they're the ones too, obviously, that have to be honest. And, there's all kinds of things out there that, they skip through the facts, this sort of thing, or they don't want to tell you the real truth. So that is not fair either. So, I mean, you're talking about, companies perpetuating lies about their products, or a coach perpetuating stuff about whether one of his players is injured. I mean, when I hear about the word respectable, I want to make sure that my source is also respectable and that I can trust. And that's what you guys said earlier. I know, Jacob, then the most trusted name in news, or the most trusted name. Well, our sources have to be part of this respectability as well. The press secretary, like I said, or the media relations person, the head coach, or the president of the company, who's ever speaking at that particular event that the journalists are at. But it can happen. I'm not giving total hope up. Maybe I'm painting a bleaker picture than you guys, but I hope it can happen.
All right, back to the chat room.
Shaker.
Yeah, we'll go ahead. All right, so we'll let Jacob read the chats, and we'll continue on to the next.
Still remember one of Tom Brokaw's last night line report when Tupac was shot. Tupac Shaker shot that killed him.
I remember that. Yeah.
Hey, I still remember Will Smith saying to Carlton, "You think Tupac Shakur is a Jewish holiday?"
Yeah, exactly. I butchered that name so bad. Yeah,
No, let me say this. Let me say this part though. It's like we brought up clicks. he brought up the whole thing with clicks and stuff. You want to know what, like I said, it's going to take the patience of someone that truly cares about this. I'm going to say this, the Daniel Day-Lewis, we'll say this, of journalists. The one who did his one every 5 years movie, didn't care if he got the awards, he just got them, who just took his time and waited. It's going to take that, because right now, the ones that are trying to get number one within the right now, trying to get the whole thing with what's the hottest, that's the one of things that really don't matter by itself. But when it's a real thing that matters and they start finding out and everything, I'll say this, the election night, when an election night comes around somewhere and there is somebody that has that has zero, they're just telling you the electoral votes, and they're telling you what's going on, and they're telling you the what states are going on, and they're doing all that thing. Does that only, nothing else they will eventually get there. They will eventually get there instead of the opinions.
Right, absolutely. Well, we do have to move on to our next topic. We're already 21 minutes in. So
one last chat here, and then we'll go to it. Okay, and then go ahead. I think it's awful that you can watch the clicks on some CNN shows. Good point. All right, go ahead, Ben.
Yeah. All right. Well, our next topic here is going to be pertaining to the Arizona Wildcats athletics. Apparently, they are in the hole a cool $240 million. All sports are currently on the chopping block. So they actually moved to the Big 12 next year in 2024. They currently field 23 varsity teams, which is 6 more than the Big 12 average. Now, here's the deal. You figure something like this and a new deal kicks in or something, and it kind of like pulls you out of that hole and all's right in the world again, right? Well, they signed a $2.28 billion media deal with ESPN, but it doesn't kick in until 2025. Whatever will they do until then? Jacob, your thoughts on this?
That's the issue. What did they do till then, and who? But you don't know who's first to go are the wrestling team, like the women's swimming. You know it. I mean, the volleyball. Those types are going to be first, and they always are. But this is what I'm saying: is like $240 million in a hole. Who is laundering? Who's laundering? Who's hiding money? That's where that's too much money to be behind. It's like. Another thing I'm asking is, what are they borrowing? Where is that going, and what is it, at what interest rate, and who screwed up, and who tried to do something in desperation and fell in a problem? Those are the questions I have with something like this, because $240 million, there have to be 85-90% that don't even have that. They don't even have half that budget.
Right.
So where it's like, and it's Arizona. You would think that'd be a USC.
Yeah.
You would think that would be that, and that would be nothing because they'd be billions. But Arizona's not. I mean, they're the Pac-12, but they're not going to be huge like a USC, a UCLA, any of those, which are basically also film schools, which are all that. Now, ask the question: who borrowed, who stole, who did all of that? That's what I have to ask. And while that is awful for that program, you better believe it, because. Unfortunately, the small sports are gone, Jeremy, one of the big ones will be too. And I'll bet you football gets hit.
Well, let me just say this, okay? Jeremy, you say that's awful for that program. That's awful for any program. I don't care who you are. We're not talking 240 cents here. We're talking what you put up there, a lot of money.
Yeah. It is indeed, and you know what? I'm gonna be in agreement with Jacob on this one. This smells scandal, like that we'll find out about in like 5 or 6 years or something. This smells scandal. I mean, 240 million. There have been people killed by the mob for way less. 240 million. That is, but I'm gonna move it on to Scott and. Get your take on it. Are you leaning more towards what Jacob's saying, or you got your own take, or what's going on?
Well, my own take is, number one, many years ago, I covered the Arizona Wildcats football team for a few games when I was working out in Phoenix. So, to me, here's the deal. They're going to the Big 12. okay, next year. And I don't know what the new Big 12 is going to look like, but I do know what the Big 12 won't look like. That won't look like Oklahoma and Texas, which are your big cash cows anyways.
Yep.
All they did was just help lead to the demise of the Pac 12, which will be now the Pac 2. So, really, what it comes down to in this particular situation is they need somebody. Too bad my father-in-law, Fred Epling, wasn't working for the University of Arizona because I hear he was one heck of a great math teacher. Maybe it was just as good that I didn't go ahead and take a class under him because I would have been in really big trouble because he was that good. All I did was gain a wipe out of the whole thing, which isn't so bad either. So the University of Arizona Wildcats add a little light to this mess. Should have had Fred Epling. Okay, but they didn't. That's my late father-in-law. Rest in peace, Dad. So it's a mess. And if they're going to be waiting for 2025, you're right. You hate to see some of these other sports as well as the other bigger ones. Don't forget the University of Arizona happens to be one of the better basketball programs as well as they have been for a long time.
They're basketball heavyweight.
Right, and I covered one of those games many years ago when Lute Olson was there. So, you know, they're going to have to bite the bullet. I hate to use the word bullet, but that's exactly what it is. And hope and pray. Remember, a long time ago when the New York Mets had individuals with that Ponzi scheme, and they took a hit out of it. I'm not bringing up another topic. All I'm doing is literally stating an example. So the university, and like Jacob said, the University of Arizona is not USC, UCLA, where you can depend on a lot of high standard academics to bail you out. I don't know the nature of the curriculum over Arizona, but that's a lot of money for them to have to deal with. Good luck.
It is a lot of money. It's a lot of money from there, and we're not. And, it's not USC, but it's not like we're talking about like Tucson Community College. It's the University of Arizona,
and that's Colorado School of Mines.
But you know what? If you're in Tucson, go to Mount Lemmon. I used to love driving up that hill. It was unbelievable.
Mount Lemmon. I have to keep that in mind. All right. Well, we're gonna swing it over to George Eichhorn here and get your thoughts about this. Are you smelling scandal, or do you think it's something else?
No, I'm probably smelling scandal too. One of the loans was extraordinarily high loan they took out because of COVID-19. I believe it was $55 million, and they're taking a long time paying it back, is what I heard. They're a good program, a solid program, but this leaves so many questions unanswered right now. They really have to do an audit, a huge audit, to see, first of all, what's going on if they haven't done that already, and where the heck the money trail leads to, whether it's inside the organization, meaning the athletic department, or is it outside influences, which could mean big rich donors or something like that. But no, that's ridiculous. I mean, you cannot operate a major program like that at a major university and that kind of red ink flowing around. And I just feel that this reeks of suspicion. And Freedom of Information Acts, don't forget, allows some of the newspapers and TV stations to do a little investigative reporting. So my hope is that the media, especially the ones located in Arizona, will be digging for details. Yesterday, they should have been digging for details, as the saying goes. But they really, really need to find out where the losses are and what are they coming from. This is astronomical. These numbers are just way out of control. And even though they're leaving the Pac-12, that's no benefit, if you will, to being in the red. I mean, that's even a worse thing when you're joining a new conference and you got a terrible track record like that. So we'll see what happens. But I mean, that's going to have to really be looked at strictly. I think it's something bad. I hate to say it, but it sure smells like it.
You got a lot of money going out and not enough coming in, and I get it. Because Scott mentioned it. Now I know, football, Arizona football hasn't been like that great, but basketball, like, you've got a contending team, like, for the NCAA tournament every single year. I would like to think, they bring in more money than football does. But $240 million So I think we'll definitely hear something here in like the next 5 years. There's going to be somebody's embezzling something. Someone is taking out loans. They're doing something. I think there's going to be more to come. We may even have to do a part 2 about.
Well, you know what? I was just thinking the same way as you. So what you just did is you walked into a GMTA. Great minds think alike. That's what that's.
Yes.
How much
you really walked into that one?
I mean me. If we hear more about this, we got to bring this topic back.
We will. Forget gotta. We will. Period.
Yes,
exclamation point. All right.
How much? Here's my question. How much do we see over the years a different version? What the odds are of the different version of let's see, SMU. You remember that the 30 for 30
death penalty
for the death penalty, and it's a different version because you can do NIL now. But just like how much of this is going to be death penalty somewhere down the line?
Oh, you know what? My best answer to that would be, let's defer. Okay, let us have more information before I talk about it.
We'll defer to the second half.
Yeah, right.
Yeah,
and the reason why I say you defer on this is so many people are so quick to provide preliminary answers without knowing all the facts.
Yeah,
right.
As tempting as it may be, but we have to wait until we have to wait until this year gets done, and fiscal year gets done, and then anybody's guess their first year in the Big 12, they might not field anything next year. That's the crazy part, you know. Sure, they'll be back in 2025, if that. It might be 2026 before they see their first bit of money come in. So it could be at the very worst, it could be 2 years without Arizona sports.
Well, let me tell you this. So one thing I have, which is a hard rule in my mind, is I pay attention to headlines and storylines all day long through different sources. Okay. Mm-hmm. But the reason why I don't bring them on these shows until I feel like my instincts tell me they're ready is I want more information before they hit my airwaves.
Right.
So people say, why didn't you bring up this and that the week before? I'll tell you why I didn't bring it up before. I didn't have enough information to make it what I consider a quality topic, so I'll defer until I get more information. And anybody that understands our business can appreciate where we're coming from there. And if they can't, well, nothing I can tell you. I'll bring a story out when I think I have enough information so we could talk about it healthy for the extended period of time.
That's totally understandable because it's better than number one, an outright lie.
Right.
Or B, it's better than having a minute and 30-second topic and it's not a segment that's designed to be like short. You know, it's like, oh, we're going to bring this up about Arizona. Yeah, we're going to talk about it for 45 seconds and move on to the next topic. It's like, why bother? You know, just wait until everything comes out and that way we can do a full segment. But I definitely think this deserves a part 2. And so when we find out more about it, I'm definitely open to bringing this back.
No question about it. You have to.
We'll move on to our next topic here, and that is the university. This actually was a bit of late breaking news, but the University of Michigan and Jim Harbaugh. So Jim Harbaugh actually agreed on a 3-game suspension. He already was out for the game at Penn State. He's out for the game at Maryland this coming Saturday, and the almighty game against Ohio State in the Big House the Saturday after. So basically, it comes to the conclusion of the sign stealing scandal. And what was occurred was it was said, it was shared amongst other schools as well. Ohio State was mentioned, ironically, but they agreed that, hey, we'll stop investigating. You take this 3-game suspension. I know Michigan, they wanted to fight it. And I read something on Facebook earlier, and I kind of leaned toward that too. It was like Michigan and the Big Ten kind of wanted to fight it, but then Jim Harbaugh was like, listen, look, if I take the 3-game suspension, then it's over with, then it's done, you know? So it's not necessarily him that did something, but because he's the head coach, he had to fall on the sword, you know? So, and that was a very interesting take. That was an interesting look, you know, because they really didn't have anything, but the investigation would have went at least 12 months. But I want to swing it over to Jacob and get your thoughts about this whole thing and him accepting the 3-game suspension. Admission of guilt, or did he just want to be done with it?
Be done with it, and probably a little of both. But, I mean, here's the big thing with this. I'm shocked. because I absolutely expected television to quote unquote bail them out so they could have Ohio State and Michigan. You have a storyline forever on that. They don't have that now, but there is a storyline. If Ohio State beats them, there's always a little quote unquote asterisk to say, but Jim wasn't there. That sort of thing, especially after 2 years in a row. But then again, Ohio State did beat them for beating the tar out of them before those other 2 years. So you can't say either way. But in the end, I also wonder if there is a hidden deal here, like a hidden the whole thing saying, I won't announce it yet, but I'm going to the NFL. I'll be done. You have to wonder that thing just because. No, just the whole thing I wonder is just because they don't like him in the big B1G. And I don't like calling it the Big Ten because there's more. But I'm like, the thing is, they don't like him. And it's like, and if he wouldn't have fought, if he would have just like deferred and just let like this, they would have just fought him and just grinded him to mush for that whole time. You know what I'm saying? That's what they would have done. And that would have been the crazy part until he would have had nothing and he probably wouldn't have had any reputation left. So I do believe that this brings him to the NFL in the end.
But to which team?
Oh, the current day Ditka. The current day Ditka Bears. It's absolutely, I'm saying the current day, as in the golden boy that left on bad terms, that's coming back to save his team. That's what Ditka did all those years ago in '83. He left on bad terms in '67. And then he wrote a letter in '78 saying, I want to be able to come back and coach this team. I'm not ready yet, but I will. This is about the same thing in a different era.
And well, Harbaugh being a former quarterback for the Bears himself, so you figure he wants to come back and make it right.
Yeah, and come back, make that right. And as I said, it's as far as the news goes, as far as any kind of story goes, it's the modern day Ditka.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, I'll swing it over to Scott here and get your thoughts about this. So I asked you the same question: admission of guilt, or did he just want it to be done?
Well, number one, you've already got a win in your pocket against Penn State.
Mm-hmm.
Well, that helps. A team that was in the top 10. Maryland coach Mike Loxley wanted no part of this conversation and downplayed it. So he's not jumping on Harbaugh. And number three, Ohio State, he wins there, then the 3 games is already done. You get the win. And bear in mind, he is coaching him during the week. So all they have to do is execute what they're told to do on Saturday. And they have a capable guy. Was it Sharon Moore, I think?
Yes.
Acting coach. So all Sharon has to do is carry out the orders from the boss, and you may have another win. But he didn't want a distraction over this thing. And the biggest thing you guys have to understand is with this thing, that the Big Ten has agreed to close the investigation. And I think the Big Ten's also agreed that they probably know they had pressure from within caused them to make this move. But let's face the reality, they didn't have all the facts either.
They didn't.
So if you don't have all the facts, take the 3 games, let Harbaugh just do what he has to do and wash your hands of it. And that's where there's that little compromise. Now, to piggyback off of Jacob, and I know we have to be conscious of time because if we want to get our pundits points in, we'll do that. But I do believe he's headed to the NFL unless the Michigan Wolverines can provide him with assurances that he's not only going to get paid a lot of money, but they're going to have his back. So it depends on where his heart is and his head and where it all plays out. But there's only one logical place to go, and it's the Bears anyways. I mean, come on. The guy played quarterback there, was under Ditka. The history's definitely there. And he has unfinished business to take care of with the Super Bowl, knowing that he lost to his brother, John Harbaugh, when they faced each other anyhow. And if the NCAA has a witch hunt on you, the NFL certainly won't. All you have to do is win in that league, and that's about it. So,
and that's it, yeah.
Right. I mean, how much nonsense do I want to take from the NCAA when the NFL we know is a win now league? So,
yeah.
But I believe in my mind, Harbaugh doesn't want this to be a distraction anymore. He's tired of it. You get past Maryland. Again, he's coaching during the week, just not on game day.
Yeah, absolutely. You know, but you know what? One thing that I noticed is that it may be closed now, but the damage has already been done. If Michigan wins the national championship, it's going to be the most controversial national championship in I don't know how long. The damage is like kind of already been done.
You know what, Denzel?
They're already
yes.
guilty in the court of public opinion.
Well, yes and no on that, because if by chance, here's where the chess game comes into play, Denz. Okay, George and Jacob, you say controversial. A lot of people might agree with you, but remember the teams they beat early in the year, and the fact they're so much better than their other opponents there. So the reason why I say yes and no is if you beat 2 top 10 teams in the last 3 weeks, then you know their talent level was pretty good. So, I know where you're coming from. I think what you're saying makes a fair amount of sense, but I'm not going to go that far. And anybody that thinks about putting an asterisk on this, they're delusional.
Now I agree with what you're saying on that one. And I'll speak on to George. I agree on what you're saying, but we aren't like casual fans. Again, confirmation bias. All it takes is one Ohio State fan to read one headline and, yep, they're guilty. Or one Michigan State fan to read one headline and, yep, they're guilty.
Yeah, but what about those other 3 teams being accused of doing it too? So, it's not like only problem with Michigan is they're the all-time winningest program, and the big fish got caught. Now everybody wants to, because we've talked about, can journalism be respectability? Well, this topic is tied perfectly because you're getting it from so many different ways. You talk about good bookends of talking between the first one and this one. You couldn't ask for a better set of bookends on one night.
One night, yeah, exactly. Well, swinging on over to George and get your thoughts about this. So, same question. Admission of guilt, or did he just want to be done with it?
To me, it's an admission of guilt. I was very disappointed to hear this news. I thought they were going to have everything lined up to challenge it. But if you're accepting this penalty, that means there is a smoking gun there. And my problem is that, does Michigan have the assurance that the NCAA is not looking at this too? I know we said the Big Ten is dropping its investigation, but what about the NCAA, which is already still investigating Harbaugh and Michigan for violations during the COVID year or two? So there's still an investigation going on there. I don't know if this means that the NCAA will not look at this. So I don't have that guarantee that. I was just surprised because, all along they were saying, oh, we're going to fight this. We're going to fight this. They got that lawyer involved. Their law firm involved, and they were going to go to the judge in Washington County. And now, but I agree with you guys. They want to put it behind them. They want to get on with business. They want to focus back on the gridiron and winning these 3 games. They won 1 already and winning the next 2 and going on to the playoffs. But I do not see him coming back after this. I do not see him coming back. I don't think, the baggage he carries with something like this. And plus, like I said, he already was suspended by his own university for 3 games early in September. And now you got 3 at the end of the season. So it just doesn't look good. And I think if any time's right, like you guys were saying, for him to make the move to the NFL, I think this is the right time after the season is done, though, of course. But no, I was a little bit surprised. But to me, it's a sign of feeling a little bit of guilt.
Okay. And you know what? To Jacob and Scott's point, before we move on to our Pundit points, as far as grooming him for as far as for the NFL, Sharon Moore went in there and he coached the game at Penn State, and he was emotional and he was like, Harbaugh, this is for you. Thank you for the opportunity. And now that all this is being thought up, I'm like, you know what? What if he's bolting for the NFL and he's grooming Moore to be his replacement? I mean, sounds like halfway sense, because he, and granted, that was genuine emotion and he was thankful for it, but it was like, well, he's an interim coach. Something had to have been talked about behind closed doors. Like,
yeah, but you're going to go there, though. Hold on. You're going to go there. I remember when Josh Gattis, once Harbaugh was looking at the Minnesota Vikings job, was considered the front runner to get that job. So what you're saying, Denzel, makes a whole lot of sense. And Sharon Moore, obviously, is building up a little bit of a resume with his interim stuff during the year. So. But remember, Josh Gattis, and I talked to Josh Gattis, who took the job at Miami, and he wanted that job bad. And when it didn't work out, he came down to my neck of the woods, and I was thankful I was able to talk to him as well. So Sharon Moore could be a guy you could be looking at, and he may be auditioning for the permanent job. Good point. Just want to bring that up.
It could, very well could, and it's kind of like when Stoops suddenly retired, and Lincoln Riley took over at Oklahoma. It's like when Urban Meyer left and Day took over at Ohio State, and we could be seeing more being groomed to take Harbaugh's spot. But they're going to discuss a lot of things behind closed doors first before it hits anyone's airways. But it remains to be seen. But we're at the 45-minute point. We're going to go ahead and close it out with our pundit points. Actually, I'll go first on this. I'll go real quick. So something that I saw earlier that was very interesting. So get this, right? The Power 5 conferences currently owe $146 million in buyouts to fired head coaches since 2002. I'm going to run down this list really quick. So, by the way, this does not include Mel Tucker at Michigan State. But you got Zach Arden at Mississippi State. They owe him $4 million. Then you have Herm Edwards at Arizona State. They owe him $4.4 million. Carl Durrell at Colorado. They owe him $8.7 million. Paul Chryst, Wisconsin, $11 million. Jeff Collins, Georgia Tech, $11.4 million. Scott Frost, Nebraska, $15 million. Brian Herson, Auburn, $15.5 million. And then the all blockbuster, Jimbo Fisher, Texas A&M, $76 million. And him and Arnett were fired at the same time after a game against each other this past Saturday when A&M blew them out. It is insane what these coaches are being signed to. To get fired and still be owed $76 million is crazy. I mean, for one school, keep it up. Texas A&M, you might be in the same situation Arizona is. I'm just saying. But I want to pass it on to Jacob and get your pundit point.
I mean, there wasn't even anywhere near that much with Ed Orgeron. And he was like, tell me which door to go out and how fast to go. and it's like, and that wasn't even that close. But I'm going to say this part. Going to our journalism tonight, the things that we brought about. This isn't journalism. This is more punditry. But this is going to Dan Orlovsky. This is why I don't want – you can enjoy the check that you're obviously making there. And I know you were a quarterback, and being one of the quarterbacks in the NFL gets all the credit in the world. But there is no question, Dan Orlovsky, that you are being told what take to have, either that or you are on drugs. You said tonight that, right in there, that Mac Jones would be the one that would get the Cleveland Browns to the playoffs, to be able to use all that, the idea. And there is no question in my – there isn't anybody anywhere that says that Mac Jones is going to be the difference maker of anybody. He hasn't showed it. He had one of the greatest coaches of all time and has killed his legacy. So he's going to help Kevin Stefanski now? Really? This is the thing. You can get all that big money at ESPN, but there's no question they are given the takes. They have to be given the takes that they say instead of being honest. Because how in the world can anybody come up with a take like that? And then we hear it all the time with the NBA guys. We hear it all the time, just any type whatsoever. Then you have to have an argument. Instead of everybody agreeing, you have to have an argument just because. And it's like, how about sometime we learn how to debate? We learn how to debate. We teach the world how to debate. Maybe it can be part of journalism class someday, because this is getting on my nerves.
Well, to be honest with you, my curriculum in the University of South Florida, Jacob, communication, argumentation, and debate was a class, and I did take it.
Yes, it depends on the university.
Yeah, and I can tell you one of my key subjects that I ended up debating on was one that most people would never think of. Then again, I had 3 women in my group, and there was a group project. We talked about prostitution. You can only imagine where that debate went, so we'll leave that there.
Oh, boy. And on that note, Scott, your pundit point.
All right, well, unfortunately, it's one that I don't like to talk about, but this is real journalism. NASCAR lost a big icon today, and that's broadcaster Kensquier, who died at the age of 88. He's the greatest NASCAR broadcaster ever, and he's a vinscully of that sport. Now, I want to go ahead and reminisce about a great memory that I had with Kensquier. I used to cover lots of races, as George knows, at Michigan International Speedway. I used to love doing it. But on one instances, I had an opportunity to talk, and I used to talk to Ken when he came down. I used to cover a couple races, but this one time, I got a one-on-one interview with Kensquier. Gracious, really great. So I'll never forget the time we're near the garage area, and one of those cars was whipping out. He says, "God, watch it." So we move over as quickly as we can, and I had to turn the tape recorder off, and then we started the interview over. I said, "Thanks, Ken, but this will be a story for me to tell you, but it's just great to have an opportunity to be able to talk to you." And a lot of the NASCAR people I've met through the years are very, very great. And there might be some PR people out there I don't see eye to eye with, but the majority of them are. But Kensquier is an icon, and he is the Vinscully of motorsports. So once again, Ken, rest in peace. Thanks for the memories I had with you, and thanks for entertaining all the millions and millions of fans that you did. You're going to be missed, but definitely not forgotten.
Absolutely. And last but not least, George, your pointed point.
Well, thank you, Scott, for remembering a great voice and great man. I appreciate you bringing him up because certainly deserves the accolades. One guy who doesn't deserve accolades, and I'm getting tired of his act, is Draymond Green. Now, Tom Izzo did not bring you up, young man, to play this kind of game and this little attitude and this other junk you got going on here, okay? Another suspension for you, 5 games. Could have been a lot more, should have been a lot more. And you're wearing a jersey. Do you know you're representing that team? You're representing a city of San Francisco, the team of the Warriors, Golden State. You guys are world champions. How many times, how many rings do you have? And yet you still let childish play and childless acts go on in your career and on the court. There's no room for that strangleholding. There's no room for your vulgar mouth whenever that spouts out and other things. All of us in Michigan and Michigan State fans especially are not happy with you. And it's really a shame that your career has turned into what it has been. And really, I think that you need to take a good, strong look at whether you should continue to play. Because you look yourself in the mirror, and who do you see? You're seeing a very, very volatile personality, and somebody who I think needs some help. I really do. And Draymond, the sooner you get some help, the better. Because this stuff is not what the NBA is about. They do not want that kind of garbage. I'm sorry, but that has to stop.
Totally understandable. And so with that being said, we are closing out this program, and I do want to turn it over to the man, the myth, the legend himself, Mr. Scott, Motor City Mad Mouth. Take it away.
From 3 legends, well, you guys to me, call me whatever you want. But anyways, I will tell you some real news, okay? And that real news is that Pundit is being broadcast around the world, okay? Take that to the bank or credit union, okay? I won't tell you which one. I'm not a financial guy. But
I haven't heard credit union in like 10 years.
My other half is the financial person. But the audio version of Pundit can be heard on iHeartRadio, Apple, Spotify, Google, or wherever you get your podcast. Yes, I do laugh every once in a while, even though I try to be as even-keeled as I can. Please hit the red subscribe button on YouTube, South Florida Tribune. We're looking to add more subscribers. Please also comment, like, and share the broadcast. Want to be a guest on Pundit and the other shows? No problem. Send your topic ideas to southfloridatribune@gmail.com or participate in the chat room. One of them will actually be on Fire Up Wisconsin, Jeremy Ballrick. Okay, so stay tuned at the top of the hour or a few minutes after that. Also, if you want to advertise cost efficiently, give me a call at 954-304-4941. We broadcast live on Facebook, LinkedIn, Twitter, and YouTube. Also, our website is www.southfloridatribune.com, Twitter/X @TribuneSouth. And Candy Ebling is behind the scenes, and she'll be hosting Fire Up Wisconsin immediately after this show. My book, once again, is Lessons from the Microphone. It is available on Amazon and Kindle. There you go. So it's turning into the enduring wisdom of visionary leaders. So there you have it, folks. Could be. I love the way Denzel's laughing at me the way I hold the book up. You know, he can obviously some of the balance is anything but good. That's okay. But here, you know what? For those people, there it is. Okay, let's do it again. How about that? We get it all in there. Very good. All right. I love those fans. All right. Well, look at all that body language. Beautiful stuff.
Who needs Vanna White? You got us.
She's a lot better looking.
And I got news for you. Pundit's Pundit is in that book, by the way. So a good opportunity for you to have a good holiday gift. Feel free to reach out on Amazon Kindle. With that said, I'll go around the horn here of Pundit's Pundit. Let everybody know how they get a hold of you. Do the best you can to trim that grocery list, even though I know it's a little bit long, but you've already done the Cliff Notes version once in a while.
Yeah. But my main thing, I definitely will trim it. Sunday, Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday, and once in a while Friday. I am on between Tribune South and Sideline Sports. I got different shows. Also, the Jake the Pundit on Twitter, Jake the Pundit 1 on TikTok, and a bunch of different writing areas, and even a couple of movies.
Good stuff. I'm proud of you there, Jacob. All right, what about you, Dens?
Somewhere between South Florida Tribune and Sideline Sports Network. My only off days are like Tuesdays, Saturdays, and Sundays. Any of those days you can catch me on. Oh, and Denzel Sniper 13 on Twitch. That's all I got.
No problem. And last but not least, the other author in this group, George.
Yeah, there's another book out there, but I'm going to defer to Scott's book because I've plugged my book so many times. I want everybody to get a copy of Scott's book because that's the one that really is going to be attention-grabbing information for anybody that wants to look behind the scenes of the microphone and journalism. So you can reach me at gicorn@yahoo.com. You can find me on LinkedIn. You can find me also on Twitter, or X, as they call it, SanG Sports 99. I'm a proud member of this South Florida Tribune team. You can read my works under Motor City Tribune, and love to be part of this show, as well as the Sports Exchange, 108 Stitches, and Inside the Pigskin. Just great lineup of programs that you guys have here, and I enjoy working with all of you.
And by the way, George Eichhorn wrote the foreword for the book, so another reason to plug it. So
thank you.
Putting it out there. All right. With that said, that concludes this edition of Pundit's Pundit. Fire Up Wisconsin is next. Candy Ebling, Jeremy Ballrick, Ralph Williams, George Eichhorn will be on that. And again, once again, the programming note for next week, Pundit's Pundit will be on Wednesday as part of a doubleheader. We'll have Pundit's Pundit, and then we'll have the Sports Exchange. So I want to wish everybody a great weekend, and we'll catch you next week on the next edition of Pundit's Pundit. So there you have it, and we will catch you the next time. Good evening, everybody.
I got to go, guys. We got a meeting.